Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this video, I'm going to talk about what has been added with Major Update 35. So let's begin by talking about the 3C skills first of all. So first, Bozel gets access to his 3C skill at last, and it's Descent of Chaos. It is a self-targeting 5-span AoE, dealing 0.33 times AoE damage, and applies 2 random debuffs to the enemies. The interesting thing about this one is it seems to work with clocks triggers, because if you cast it again, it does an additional 0.05 damage, so 0.38%, and it applies an extra random debuff, so 3 debuffs, although the cooldown increases to 6 turns at that point. And then it can increase one more time for 0.43 times AoE damage and 4 debuffs. Although then the cooldown will be 7. So it does seem a bit RNG based, right, because of the increasing cooldown, but with each cast, the damage keeps increasing. So that makes it a very interesting skill to replace the current combo of Earthquake and Black Hole. So in essence, the first cast, it's going to start off as a self-targeting spell that does less damage than Black Hole. The second cast will do more damage with an extra debuff, and the third cast will hit for 0.43 times damage and 4 debuffs, which can be quite terrifying. Overall, well worth adding in, and if you use Bozel in your Apex box, it will definitely be useful. The other 2 skills that are being added, the 3C skills, are kind of useless because it's for Kirikaze and Silver Wolf. Kirikaze gets like a single target skill, Crouching Tiger, that does 1.6 times damage, right? It has 2 range and melee soldiers participate. Not much to say about that. I guess it also increases his survivability with the passive effect that's on it, but I don't really see Kirikaze getting used that often anyways. As for Silver Wolf, it's similar. Storming Strike is an Ignore Guard skill that does 1.4 times damage. Right? The extra effects only kick in before you enter the battle itself. So it's not like it provides you the extra mobility or skill increase until you actually attack. So in that sense, because using assassins in PvP and so on is so heavily based on whether you can get into range to attack, Silver Wolf's limited range is not a doesn't really make him a good choice overall, as compared to other characters like Zerda and so on. So overall, I guess you can say 1 very useful skill for Bozel, 2 kind of useless skills for 2 SR heroes. Next will be about the new Secret Realm Store exclusive equipment. So this time around, we got equipment for 2 healers, Wiler and Florentia. Both of them are hats, so they take the helm slot, and it's clear that both of these pieces of equipment are trying to replace the dominance of the Tenyos headdress. Wiler's truthfully, I would say Wiler's is not all that useful, simply because Wiler is no longer a top tier Apex Arena healer. Right? The healers you bring for Apex nowadays are most likely Liana, let's just bring it up. Liana, Rosenseal, and Florentia. So that right there kind of eliminates that, right? Some people bring Licorice as a potential healer. Some people bring Iris as another healer. But Wiler, I just have not seen a Wiler in Apex for quite some time now. So I feel like it's mostly useless exclusive. As for Florentia's Gem of the Empire, this one decreases the soldier damage taken by 10%, and when each battle starts, or when an ally dies, unit gains 1 stack of battle strategy. So this one is actually kind of interesting. Right? Whether I'm going to get it is probably a no, realistically, because I find Florentia gets sufficient stacks of battle strategy anyways. But it could be an option to replace the Tenyos headdress, but overall, I still think Tenyos headdress with that potential for +3 mobility is a better choice. But that one is much more situational. If you play like a tank push box, this could very well be worth it. Right? Especially that soldier damage reduction can increase your survivability. But if you don't play a tank push box, if you play one that's about getting mobility buffs to charge in an assault, then I would say stick with the Tenyo's headdress. So, you know, those are the two exclusives for this month. Next then, let's talk about some of the new events. Well, in the Secret Realm, there is a new event, the Ghost of Baskervilles. So this seems to be a continuation of the previous detective event that we had with Wiler. So I guess it could be fairly interesting. Haven't really looked into it in any great detail yet, but it seems to be mostly the usual farm maps for resources to trade for, you know, the usual items and so forth. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Side note, the previous Wiler event that I'm talking about is the Reichenbach Veil of Conspiracy event. Next is about the Echoes of Light, I suppose, and the banner. So, Echoes of Light, the skins here is for the two new characters, right? Mu and Epsilon. The other characters that are available for skins is, of course, the previous banner, right? Lucretia and Autokratos. And then there is, for the last two slots, Helena and Hobo. So, just, I guess, Lolly, and Helena. Overall, I wouldn't say this is a great selection, because Helena has recently gotten two skins released, right? Her Macho Lalo and her Beach skin. So, it might be you could only pick the Mew skin and the Lucretia skin. I don't know. Not the greatest selection of skins. And the banner, of course, is the two new heroes, Epsilon and Mew. A quick summary of these two new heroes is that Mew is... You can think of her as being basically a single target mage that is... primarily single target mage that has 3 range due to one of her passives. And she can more or less just... she can provide a bunch of healing to allies. For example, her talent provides passive healing, right? As long as allies are on grassland or forest, they will heal 3 times Mew's intelligence. And if enemies are on these terrains, they will get a debuff applied onto them. Right? Her 3C is about doing 1.6 times single target damage, and she can carry a bunch of single target skills with, I think, 2 different AoE skills as well. So, but her AoE skills are not the greatest. Right? Her other one cost skill, Revitalizing Blessing, is what allows her to have a unit skill range increase of 1, so that she can launch these at 3 range and so on. It's important to note that she has no actual mobility buff or anything like that, so it can be difficult to get her into range properly, if you will. Oh, the final thing about her is she has this forest teleport, where she can teleport an ally to any forest or grassland tile within range. So, yeah, I mean, end of the day, I don't think she's a required must-draw for a hero or anything like that. She's just more of a nice-to-have. And as for Epsilon, he is actually in a very, very similar state. So, Epsilon is a Meteor Strike faction buffer, alright? So just like Zerda, he will buff Meteor Strike, and he has... his 3C is Ignore Guard attack, alright? And this 3C will allow him to get more attack for every time a unit is eliminated. So it can stack up to 4 times, so he can have naturally build up plus 20% additional attack. And this attack buff would apply to his soldiers. So that's what his 3C does. It's an Ignore Guard strike that allows him to get increased attack as more characters die. Other than that, he has the choice of the faction buff. I believe he has a 1-cost skill that will also ignore guard. Yeah. So there's a 1-cost skill that ignores guard as well. And yeah, so he can just bring a whole bunch of ignore guard skills or faction buff or accelerated aid to provide some mobility buffing to allies. The other thing about him is that his talent will have this effect. Okay, first, soldiers can engage in ranged attacks along with the hero, and second, as long as he has the fusion power special effect on him, skill range is increased by 2 and mobility is increased by 2 as well. So in other words, he will have, let's say, 3 range with his 1 range skills, and the +2 mobility means he has a 5 base mobility. So he basically has 8 mobility, or 8 range in total. Move 5, attack 3. Right. It's a bit less than Zerida, to be clear. So there is that to keep in mind. So in some ways, you can think of him as potentially being a poor man's Zerida, or a shorter range, shorter leg Zerida. But yeah, it does add another mobility buffer, or sorry, another faction buffer for Meteor Strike, which is pretty big. Overall, I won't say he's a must-have either, more of a nice-to-have for those who decide to play Meteor Strike, or have a lot of Meteor Strike characters in their box. In that sense, actually, he could fit pretty well in my box, because I have, for example, Sigma, Omega, Hiei, and as well as Zerida. All of them are Meteor Strike, so they would benefit from him. But at the end of the day, very much not a must-have. Oh, Juggler as well, side note. And I personally don't really plan to draw for him yet, because I have no time to farm his shards. I'm currently too busy farming up Lucretia, as well as Kayura, and I'm also finishing up my Rosen Seal. Right? So I currently have 3 characters in the process of farming, and then after that I want to farm up Shuri. So get her up to 6 stars as well. So I might draw for him, but there's no guarantee yet. I'm taking a wait and see approach. I can afford to wait these until the very last day. And what I'm hoping to see is who appears out of Muir and Epsilon on the future banner that is a guaranteed hero. Right? Because on this banner, all I really want right now is Epsilon. And since I don't want Mew. And in that kind of situation, if Epsilon appears on a guaranteed banner, like a Destiny Summon banner like this in the future, then I can wait until then. So that's my current thoughts on this update. There's not really anything else with this update, so that's all I want to say in this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Nitro Avids.